Hey, good morning for those of you on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast where I'm at. Want to welcome you. Today's a great day. It's sunny outside. That's always a good thing for me. I think when it's raining, I'll just say it's raining outside. My lawn's getting wet. That's a good thing too. For those of you who are early or on time, I wanted to just say thank you by giving you a tip that's not necessarily focused on the topic today, but certainly it just sticks with federal sales. Yesterday, I met with a large prime, Leidos, and I was in there talking to somebody who's at this top level, dealing in the $10+ billion range of annual sales for them. And so, long story short, though, the tip that I want to provide is what they were just telling me. We were having this conversation again and again because they were asking me if I knew small businesses like yours that I could refer to them. And they said two things that really I've said before, but I just want to drive home as a tip for you if you ever are trying to go to a large and what larges look for. One is this agency intimacy, this awareness within an agency. Generally, you only get that by working within an agency and getting to know the program office people, the contracting office people. And it's the reason I say first subcontract under a small, then go after prime contracts with an agency, then go to largest. So this agency intimacy is something that is really attractive to largest. The second thing is they can do a lot of work, but what they're looking for from small businesses, like most of you who are on this call, is they're looking for companies that have a niche that they're very good at. So let's say artificial intelligence, that might be a really, AI, ML might be a really good niche to help them with. And so there's these different niche services that you might have. And when I talk about focus in most of my trainings, it's not just because I'm saying this generally from my own experience, but I'm also saying it because that's what large primes are looking for if you're looking to join a team. So that's just a tip for those of you just getting here, a tip for you who are early and on time that I want you to keep in mind is it's okay to niche. And when you do, you'll be so much more attractive to a large because they do everything. They're looking for somebody who can do one little thing. Let me go ahead and turn this scroll bar off on the bottom and get back to my chat. And let's get started. In this session, I'm going to, sorry about that. One second, just need to update my screen here. Okay, sorry. So in this session, I'm going to give you suggestions on how to win contracts as an 8A company in the federal market, right? We'll look first at what's hurting your efforts for success. And then I want to go over 10 things that when done will help you achieve the success you're looking for from your company. So hopefully that sounds good. That's the purpose of today's session and training. If you don't know who I am, I'm Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome you to my daily LinkedIn Live sales training where I provide processes and procedures for you to achieve success in the federal market. While I do post on other social media platforms, LinkedIn is the platform where professionals can come together and network like you're doing in the chat and you're doing in your own feeds. And so that's the reason I post my LinkedIn Lives here. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've helped hundreds of companies win billions of dollars by teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. Processes are from A to Z. When you follow a process, you get predictable results. And that's what we all want, are repeatable, predictable results. And so that's why I do this training, is to give you a piece of the process and procedures every single day. Before we get started, do me a favor, help buyers, help me, remember who you are. Help those in the community here remember who you are by putting your company name and your core competency, 2 or 3 words only, into the chat, right? Don't use a lot of words to describe your core competency. That should be able to be done pretty tightly. When you do this, people will not only begin to remember who you are, but maybe reach out and say, I want to get you on a team. Sometimes we get buyers in here and they'll look in and say, well, you should contact me offline because we have opportunities we're looking at pushing out to industry, things like that, right? And don't ever feel like you've done it too much. If you come to this training more than once, put it in every single day. Drive into our memories who you are. And we really want to see that. So I see people doing that. Thank you for doing that. As you're doing that, I'm going to move on to talking about, before I get too far into the meat, I want to just talk about why mistakes we make are bad for us as 8A small businesses, right? And I'm going to put myself in your shoes for today. So in no particular order, right, why the mistakes are bad for us. One reason is that there's no plan for success. If we make these mistakes I'm about to talk about, we end up following a shiny object or reactive approach to business growth instead of having faith in a strategic or proactive plan that we put in place ourselves. And so that's one reason. Another reason that these mistakes are bad is that we'll never be seen as subject matter experts or SMEs. I say that SME, being a SME, equals branding. People are branding and seeing you as that subject matter expert. And if we don't do these things that I'm going to suggest to you today, then you're kind of unbranding yourself, and that's not good. Another mistake, another thing that comes from us making these mistakes is that we don't have depth of knowledge into any particular agency. How could we, right? If we're trying to go after 5 or 10 different agencies, then we never have the time. We just really don't have the bandwidth and the time to dig deep into an agency to build those strong relationships. We never have true strategic partnerships or relationships, or if we have them, we have they're unconnected relationships. So somebody at EPA and somebody over at OMB and somebody at the Army, but they don't know each other, and so they're not a connected hive of or their own internal network of people where your reputation begins to be built among them. Another thing that's bad that comes out of our mistakes is that we're unattractive to teammates. And I don't mean we look bad. I mean we're unattractive, meaning we're not attractive. And another way you can think of attractive is when you're scrolling through the feed on Facebook or LinkedIn, there's attractive posts that catch your attention and there's ones that don't. You don't judge the ones that don't. You just go right by them. We don't want to be unattractive to our teammates or buyers, especially large primes, and have them scroll by us, right? We want them to see us and stop. So that's an important one. And then the last one for examples of how it's bad or why it's bad that we're making these mistakes is that for us A&A firms, when we get to the end of our 9 years, 10 for some of us, when we get to the end and we graduate, we fall off the 8A cliff. If we were having any success at all, and half the 8As have no success, but if we were having success at all, we kind of come up and many of us fall right back out. I was just reading a statistic this morning about 60% of firms that go up, come down, and really don't make any money again at all. And that's what I mean by falling off the cliff, right? The program, the 8A program is a business development program, and not BD in the way we say it in sales, but business development, meaning your company's development, creating a strong foundation over 9 years. Well, we don't want to create a foundation, or we don't want to help you work really hard for 9 years and then fall off the cliff because you have no foundation. And so when you don't make these mistakes, you start having that foundation. Anyways, if you understand what I'm saying about why mistakes that we make or some mistakes that we make are bad for us, put less mistakes in the chat, right? It's okay to make new mistakes. We just don't want you to make mistakes that I've made and they've made that you can learn from, right? So less mistakes, put less mistakes in the chat if you understand what I'm saying about how mistakes can be bad for us. And speaking of putting it into the chat, I really want you to engage with me as I go through training. Give me feedback. I'm going to ask you questions. Put it into the chat. Sometimes I'll ask you a question and say, just think about it. Other times I'll ask you to put it in the chat. And I want to know that you hear me, that you're following along, that you're an active participant in this training, because I'm not here to teach you information. I'm here to try to give you tips that you can walk away from today's session and put in action, right? And to start improving your company. So let's take an example right now is if you're a hub zone, a woman-owned small business, an 8A or a service disabled veteran-owned small business or some similar type designation, put that in the chat so people can see, oh, John, hub zone, that type of thing. Let's not be in this place where we have a community where people don't know that maybe you're a similarly situated entity. Two SDVOs could come together on cyber and maybe go after work together. So put that in the chat while I drink water and go to the next slide here. Okay, so I want to give you 4 specific mistakes that 8A small businesses make. And then after this, I'm going to give you 10 tips for things you can do to address these mistakes and to start winning more contracts in the federal space. So the first biggest mistake, and these are my opinions of the mistake, right? People might have different thoughts on it, but I've been doing this long enough that I can tell where which mistakes are having the biggest impact. And so of all the mistakes, these are the ones I think that cause the most impact. First one is trying to sell into multiple markets, federal, state and local, commercial, right? I believe it's caused by a FOMO, a fear of missing out attitude, where you think to yourself, well, if I don't go there, I'm not going to be able to build a company. But that's the opposite of what the reality is. If you spread yourself too thin into these different markets, you won't be able to grow. And so I prefer the federal market, but most importantly, I say, if you're in the federal market, be in all the way. And in particular, if you're an 8A small business, well, the 8A program is a federal government program. The federal government buyers are taught to use the 8A program and to work with 8A small businesses to help them begin to get a shot in the government and to be a seller to the government. And so my first thing about that mistake is just be all in on the federal if you're going to be. And I know you've got this fear of missing out, but I'd be willing to bet almost nobody on this call is doing more than $10 million a year. And you could do that next year. When you focus and you do some of the things I'm about to tell you, you can legitimately grow a significant amount of business as long as you've got a good foundation, which I'll talk about. Second thing is, and this kind of goes into the foundation, is you have more than one core competency, right? When I said put your 2 or 3 words describing your core competency, think about this. Don't put it in the chat, but think about this. Did you struggle with that, or did you just put SharePoint, for example, or did you just put cybersecurity or elevators, right? That kind of thing. If you struggle communicating easily in 1, 2, or 3 words what your core competency is, then the rest of us who want to help you and buyers who want to buy from you will struggle to decide where you fit. Again, why we sometimes make this mistake is FOMO, fear of missing out. We fear that if we say we only do SharePoint, that we'll miss out on this other Microsoft work. But that's not really how it happens. What happens is people go, oh, SharePoint, let me bring you in, work with you. I trust you. Can you do this other stuff? Sure, I can. And then you grow organically inside of your existing customer. And so I have a friend who's doing $100 million a year doing one core competency, data analytics, data science, so data, in one agency in the federal government. You can do this, right? It takes time. I'm not here to tell you you're going to make a $10 million in 1 year, right? It takes time. You got to build trust in there with your customer, but you can easily do that because you know what? The government does spend a lot of money, right? And it's one big customer. The next one is we target more than one department: HHS, VA, Department of Homeland Security, Navy, Army, EPA. We're going everywhere. We're actively trying to reach into those places. And what I say is pick one. If you're under 10 million, pick one. Dive deep into that. And if you make it a big enough department, that won't be hard. For those of you who've been in training with me, you know that today I'm saying the word department, not agency, because I'm okay with you going up a little bit to the Department of Navy, not defense, right? But pick the Army, Navy, or Air Force. Marine Corps is in the Navy. Pick Homeland Security, HHS. You can grow your $10 million in business right there in that one place. What we end up doing sometimes is fearing that, hey, I have to go to opportunities over there and over there and over there. Well, what happens is then you no longer are able to truly do business development or capture because your attention is focused on too many unrelated opportunities. But if you push tight into the Air Force and you say, I'm just going after all the elevator work within the Air Force, for example, and I don't know how much they do, right? But if I do that, then I'm going to every Air Force installation and saying, well, do you guys have buildings that use elevators? Yes. Okay. Who's in charge of that elevator? And beginning to understand and truly research an agency. It doesn't take you that long. I can make you an expert in 90 days. I've taken interns to junior BD people in 90 days by teaching them just the process for understanding a single agency. So a big mistake we make is trying to target too many. The next one is accepting, and this is the last one I want to share with you, is accepting the generosity of others. Contracting officers, business opportunity specialists, teammates, these people who walk up and say, hey, here, take this work. You're an 8A firm, take this work. And I'm calling this a mistake because what's happening is you're growing your company reactionary, being reactive to what other people suggest. And most of these people are helpful, right? Some of the teammates might be slightly a little bit thinking of themselves. Hey, I got an opportunity. It can go AT&T or AT&T 8A. Why don't we work together? And I know of somebody who's in IT and construction as an 8A because they kind of went through that path, which is not an unusual situation. One of the challenges with 8A firms when they get to the end of their life, 9 years, or excuse me, end of the program, not end of the life, end of the program, is that they've got too many contracts at too many agencies and no one really knows them, and their past performance is not really focused on a core competency. And that's one of the major reasons they fall off that cliff. And so I'm going to talk to you about how do you deal with that, because you still want those people to be helpful to you, but you want them to be helpful to you in a way that is aligned with your proactive strategy or plan for growth, not their one-offs. So I want to just talk about these 4 mistakes and say that we can look to others and say they're the cause, the KO, the BOS, and teammates, like I just said, or any of these other mistakes, but really it's our responsibility. And so we need to look at any of these mistakes we're doing, anything we're running into. I'm asking you to take responsibility, not blame, right? Blame's a whole different thing. What I'm saying is if I take responsibility for why I'm at a certain position with my 8A company and where I'm going with success, if I take responsibility, I have control. But if I sit there and say the problem is the government, let's say, then I have to wait for the government to do whatever they're going to do for me to start having success. But if I take responsibility, I've got control. And now I'm going to figure out what do I need to do to have that success. I'm going to teach you what you can do. Once you take responsibility, I'll give you control with these 10 steps. And so the one thing I ask you to do is to take responsibility for your own success, right? By putting take responsibility into the chat. And while you do that, I'm going to drink some water. So take responsibility, those 2 words into the chat. So I got about 14 minutes left, and I have, I actually have 11, so I have a bonus tip, but I have 10 tips I want to give you that are going to boost success as an 8A company. And so I'm going to go through these pretty fast as a fire hose. Sometimes we have people being generous and throwing notes in about what I'm saying on here, but if you got any questions, feel free to direct message me. So my tips that I'm going to give you, I tried to put them in the order that I want you to do them in, right? So the first one is commit to federal only, right? I talked about that one of the biggest mistakes. You just have to commit to federal only. If you're in here, you keep servicing your existing customers. You're not trying to burn bridges anywhere, anything, but you commit the 80% of your energy to federal and say, look, we're going into the federal government. We chose to be in the 8A program. The 8A program it's got the whole backing of the SBA, and so many contracting officers are aware of it and they buy from 8A firms. We're going all in. So my first thing for you is either make the decision yourself or talk with your team and say, hey, let's go all in federal. When you sit there and dilute that, it gets hard to grow the federal business, and you'll always hover in this $3 to $5, $6 million range, and you won't really get a lot of success. 8A firms should be doing 10 million, in my opinion, by the time they're graduating. Any company that's in there, if the SBA is bringing the right companies in that are prepared to grow, right, that's the qualification, then they should be able to expect to be a $10 million business at least by the end of 9 years. The second one, commit to one subject matter expert core competency, SME core comp. And what I mean by this, just so I give you a couple of quick examples, is you've got to pick something like painting. If you're in construction, say, I'm good with painting. I'm okay if you want to expand that core comp because paint goes on drywall and you say, well, I do painting and drywall, right? Or painting and drywall require the frame, right? So that's all part of, you can't have paint without the drywall, and you can't have the drywall without the frame. It begins to get out of a single core competency when you say you do the plumbing and the electrical that are inside the wall, if you're following with what I'm saying there, right? So you need to pick one core competency. Don't say I do IT technology and all software development, right? Software development is too big. We do it in the Amazon stack, the Microsoft stack. We do this type of software development. Whatever it is, niche down. When you niche down, it allows you to create a beachhead. And if you're not familiar with the whole concept of a beachhead, I described it a little bit before, but by using your core comp to win a contract, you get in the door, get on the beach of France, and now you can begin to move throughout France, move throughout your customer by demonstrating your expertise on your core comp. Talk about your related core comps. Now you can talk about secondary stuff because you have the relationships. So number three is commit to one department. I told you, HHS, DHS. And so I don't want to explain too much more on that one. I think it makes sense. Pick one department and go deep. I'm not suggesting this. I'm saying that is the path to success. If you pick one department, Navy, Homeland Security, whatever, you will grow a $10 million book of business over a reasonable amount of time with the right effort, right? So if you already know what yours is, put that in the chat. So those of us who are watching chat, we can see that, oh, you're at the VA or you're at Homeland Security, because then maybe a couple of you can come together and help each other, right? Network offline. That's one of my favorite things, is you get to network. So that is number 3. I got to pick up the pace. Number 4, create a script or template to respond to the helpful people. And what I mean is, when the next time somebody comes at you and says, hey, you're an IT company, but I'd like to give you a construction project on 8A, have a script that you've already thought about, or a template email that you can send that basically says, thanks so much, Jane. I really appreciate your generosity for even thinking of me. This isn't going to be a fit for my company. We're in the IT space. Do you mind if I follow up and we have an intro call? I can let you know what we've been up to and maybe understand where I might fit within your organization. And if a friend says that, do that same thing. If somebody comes to you who has construction and you're an IT firm, you could also pass that work to another 8A that actually is a construction firm. Both these two people will be happy that you just moved it on. And I just happen to be using that example, but it could be anywhere in there. But know what you're going to say to somebody as a way to help them understand what you really want. If you don't tell people that, hey, I'm not in cyber, I'm in software development, then you're going to keep getting these leads that are not related to your core competency. But if you communicate it to your friends, to your network, we will sit there and be able to refer the right things to you or make the right introductions. Number 5, complete your DSBS profile. I have a whole separate training on this, but half the 8A companies out there are invisible in the Dynamic Small Business Search Tool, which is the #1 place that the government goes to find small businesses when they're doing market research. If the federal buyer is going to this tool and you're invisible, then all you have to do is complete your profile to improve your success. It doesn't mean you're getting a contract, but right now you're invisible. Let's make yourself visible. There's other training that I have that could dig into that. Happy to let you know if you want questions about that. The number 6, have a 6-second capability statement. I talked about this yesterday in success at Navy Gold Coast, but having a 6-second capability statement means somebody can look at it in 6 seconds. They know what your company does and where you've done it before, which enables them to decide who they might refer you to in their agency, right? So if you're trying to sell a certain service, you need people to instantly get what it is and decide if they can help you or whether it has to go over to Bobby to help you. So if you understand what I'm saying about 6 seconds, how a capability statement must be 6 seconds, put 6 seconds into the chat. 6 seconds is all the buyer will take to understand. It's all teaming partners will take. It's all you take when you look at things. When you looked at my invitation to today's training, right? How long did it take you to make a decision about whether you wanted to come? So we've been trained these days because of social media to just get things faster. And I want your capability statement to come down to that level. One quick tip about this as you're putting 6 seconds into the chat is that your capability statement, a good rule of thumb for me, is no font less than 14 font. Unless it's the NAICS codes at the bottom. But anything about your core comp and who you've done this for, it needs to be at 14-point font. Okay, so number 7, have a LinkedIn profile that confirms your core competency and screens your SME status. It says that we do this work, my company does this work, and here are the things that talk about it. For example, you can have your capability statement in there, you can have white papers. I talked about Bain Group, who went to San Diego yesterday, and I was saying how if you go into, I think it's Hunter, it's your profile. If you go into Hunter's profile, you'll now see that she's got their case studies in there. Why create friction, right? And so instead of driving people back to the website, which can happen, right? But if they're in LinkedIn, let's make sure we're serving this information up. So you want your profile to scream. And if I can just do a quick commercial, right? I'm an expert at government contracting LinkedIn. Using LinkedIn, I would argue that I'm easily in the top 1%. And I know how to use LinkedIn for companies. I helped Hunter, for example. So we're starting a LinkedIn course. We're announcing that soon. If you want to get notified when we have that course available, just put LinkedIn into the chat for me. Let me know that you want to hear about my LinkedIn course. So I do want to give a shout out, though, as long as I'm in this quick commercial, to somebody who's in this community. Shelby is, Shelby, let me just find the information. So Shelby Pledger is with Information Science Consulting, right? She's in this place. Yesterday, she personified exactly what a a good networker and a good community member is by giving without any expectation. She said to you in the chat yesterday that if any of you wanted to get introduced into FAA, reach out to me and I'll help you. I mean, how cool is that? How often have you run into people where you asked if they would make an introduction and they're like, well, I kind of like to keep my contacts close hold. But here's Shelby saying, hey, if I can help you in any way get into the FAA with an introduction, reach out to me. And I just wanted to first say thank you. That's awesome. Second, I wanted to encourage you to go connect with Shelby. I think she's open to connections, so connect with Shelby. Get to know her, even if you don't want to get into FAA. You couldn't have a better connection than one with Shelby. So thank you, Shelby, for doing that. Okay, let's move on to number 9, which is actually, I think, number 8, because Shelby was number 8. Number 8 is build 5 agency strategic relationships. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but we're the sum total of the 5 people we hang out with the most. So in our personal life, we are the sum total of the 5 people we hang out with the most. An example for me is I obviously hang out with my wife a lot. So she's influential in my life. And I hang out with Gus, who's on here a lot because we work together, right? These are 2 people that you might be aware of. And so I hang out with these people. And there's 3 others that I hang out with the most. Well, I start becoming the sum total. And so really, if I have no interest in the opera, then hanging out with 3 people who are really big opera fans, et cetera, it doesn't really make sense, because either I'll start being more like that, or I won't be having fun in there. And I'm losing my analogy here, but what I want you to do is go into a federal agency that's your target agency, that department, and build 5 strategic relationships. Look in there and go, who are the 5 people I'm hanging out with the most in this department? Could be a small business specialist, could be a KO, it could be a program office person, doesn't matter. Create 5 people as you're targeting that agency and aiming for $10 million, let's say, in that department. Target 5 people that you will build a relationship with, a strategic relationship where not only do they know you and will help you, but you know them and you're trying to figure out how you might be able to help them as well, right? So a strategic relationship is give and take. So number 10 is find and register in every target agency's supplier portal. DSBS is the #1 search tool, but in the Navy, you'll find multiple commands that have their own little registry portals. HHS has its own small business portal. So wherever you're going in, whatever department, go find out what supplier portal they have and get yourself registered in your target agency. I think that's number 10 here is, this could be 9. I'm getting mixed up, but no, this is number 10. Build 8 strategic relationships with large and small businesses. So I have a whole video out there that you can watch about how do I build strategic relationships. But the point is, if you build 8 strategitic relationships with small and large firms, you will now have 8 people advocating on your behalf. If they hear about opportunities that might fit, they'll bring it back to you when you're having regular meetings with them. This isn't just giving, right, on their behalf. You're also trying to do the same thing. You're trying to be a strategic relationship to each one of these people. And these 8 people are committed to your success as well. And so I talk about how you can have regular meetings with them and build that relationship. But when you have that relationship, it's as if you have 8 business developers out there committed to helping your company grow. And they're looking to you as somebody who's committed to their growth as well. So have that. We're running out of time, so I'll throw the last tip to the next day. But I will tell you, it has to do with having a successful meeting. And in fact, you can just go watch a previous training I did where I talk about how to have successful meetings, not great meetings, right? You need to have a meeting that is targeted towards your growth. And that's really important. Okay, so in this session, I talked about what you can do to start increasing the likelihood of winning contracts as an 8A company in the federal market. If you take one thing from today's training, take responsibility. It'll give you all sorts of control and it'll give you a tremendous amount of success. If you like today's training, I'd appreciate a thanks in there for the team. Just saying thanks in chat is really great for us at the end of our day. And remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.